Hi there, my name is Peter Cron. I'm a nomination candidate for the Federal Conservative Party in the riding in North Vancouver, here in beautiful British Columbia, which is on the shores of Burrard Inlet. Today I want to talk to you about a topic that I call bitumen versus licorice. Which flows better in a pipeline? Well, the reason I'm talking about that is that bitumen kind of looks like a thick gooey oil, whereas licorice kind of looks like this. And licorice tastes pretty good if you eat it, bitumen not so much. But we can learn a lot from this because licorice is a hydrocarbon, just like bitumen. In fact, it's about 12 carbons long with a lot of oxygen and hydrogen. In fact, if you were to properly refine this, it would fall in the grade of jet fuel. So if you eat licorice, you digest the carbon and you breathe out carbon dioxide, and you get a lot of energy. Same thing with bitumen, except those molecules are anywhere from 60 to maybe 100 carbon atoms long. So there's a lot of energy in a molecule of bitumen. But bitumen has a problem. It's kind of thick. It doesn't flow very easy in pipelines. And that's because the molecules are either really long or twisted, and they tangle up and don't flow very well. So for that reason, to get bitumen to flow, we have to add something called a diluent. And that's a lighter hydrocarbon. So when you add diluent to bitumen, you get the term dilbit. And the thing about the hydrocarbon molecules is they're actually quite heavy. They're about as heavy as water. So if you were to spill bitumen on the ocean here, it would attract particles and then possibly sink and go to the bottom. And that makes it very hard to clean up if it's spilled. So shipping bitumen for that reason is actually not a great idea. So as you know, we don't have an expanded pipeline coming here to the west coast. We have the Kinder Morgan pipeline, and the plans are to make it triple capacity. Because we don't have that, the only way to ship our product, which is from Alberta, Saskatchewan, and northern British Columbia, to the markets in Asia, is to use rail cars. So, is that a good plan? Well, let's talk a little about it. Because if we have an engine and a tanker behind it, we can put the bitumen in there only if we dilute it with this kind of material. And that means we're adding the weight of this material to the rail car, in addition to the bitumen. And a rail car weighs something like 29,000 kilograms. And if you have a whole string of tanker cars together, you actually have a moving pipeline, which means every day we ship a moving pipeline from Edmonton down to the Gulf Coast of Mexico, paying the energy to push the pipeline 3,500 kilometers in addition to the extra weight of this diluent. So what happens when it gets to the Gulf of Mexico? Well, my son kindly created this exact replica of a tanker when he was about 5 years old. And when we get to the Gulf of Mexico, we have to put the bitumen with the diluent on the tanker, and then it ships to the refineries in Southeast Asia, who will then use this bitumen by unloading it, separating out the diluent, and using the bitumen. But because diluent is so expensive, they might actually put it back on the tanker and ship it back to us all the way back to Alberta. So we have tens of thousands of miles of shipping extra weight with carbon dioxide production because of the burning of fuel for no good reason other than we have been unable to get a pipeline to Tidewater. Well, what's wrong with that? Well, the Alberta government is trying to put together 4,500 to up to 7,000 rail cars to be going from Edmonton, 3,500 kilometers, to the Gulf of Mexico and back again. We are getting a much lower price for our oil because we cannot get it to Tidewater. And that low price oil goes to the Asian markets and to India. And shipping by rail produces so much extra carbon dioxide. What can we do about it? Well, if we were able to refine bitumen in Canada, we would use something called an upgrader. And an upgrader is really just a chemical process plant that takes bitumen and cuts it into smaller pieces. We can change the length of this to something like 8 carbons for gasoline, 12 carbons for diesel, or maybe even a little longer for bunker. And because we've cut it on both ends, we would add a little bit of hydrogen, and so the term is called a hydrocracker. What that does is it makes the molecules smaller, more valuable, and a better product to sell. In addition, they're much lighter than water. So if they were spilled out into the ocean here, they would float and either be easier to clean up or evaporate more quickly or be digested biologically. We could use the revenue from a better value product to do certain things. First of all, the industry has to provide the safest pipeline that's technologically available, and it would cost some money. The government needs to pass regulation and provide the resources to enforce the legislation and make sure the pipeline is operated properly and that the companies have enough resources to clean up a spill if it's there. Thirdly, we could tax the revenue coming off of the pipeline and use it to enhance the environment, especially on the west coast here, in order to enhance our fishery resources to produce more salmon that would be better for the orcas. So we need to have the resources left over so that the companies make a fair profit and they can pay the workers a fair wage so that they can take care of their families in Canada. And the last thing that we can do with this money is we can apply it to alternative forms of energy and energy conservation so that our energy supply is more diverse and more robust. So I want to talk to you about 2 more things: the Paris Accord and the Governor of Washington State. But let's start with the Paris Accord. This accord was drafted by the United Nations, and people have accused me that I'm not a fan of it. But I have a problem. I read things. I've written legislation, I've written policy, and I know the wording that has to go in them. So the first thing I do is I look at Section 4. And Section 4 says developing countries shall support those countries that need to improve. So it shall support according to Article 9. And Article 9 says those countries shall provide financial resources, which are the carbon taxes that you are paying. Down in 9.5, it says that the developing countries shall report 2 times a year on how much money and resources they're providing to those countries. But those countries that receive the carbon tax money do not have to report at all what they're doing with the money. So we're sending our oil via tanker car on ships to developing countries at discounted oil prices, and then we're sending them the carbon tax money. Can you tell me what incentive there is for the developing countries to get themselves off of carbon? I don't think you could, and I can't either. So with respect to the Governor of Washington State, he has said that he opposes the expansion of the Kinder Morgan pipeline because it's going to impact the orcas in Juan de Fuca Strait and affect climate change. An interesting little tidbit though. The existing Kinder Morgan pipeline has a spur line that leaves here in the lower mainland and goes to the Cherry Point oil refinery in Washington State. The Canadian oil is refined there into gasoline and sold back to the lower mainland at world prices. The wages go to American petroleum workers, engineers, and scientists, and the taxes go to the Governor of Washington State. But if the Kinder Morgan pipeline was expanded, you can ship gasoline refined in Edmonton down to Vancouver. You would have Canadian refineries using Canadian workers, scientists, and engineers to provide Canadian gasoline to Canadians in Vancouver at Canadian prices. The taxes that would be generated can go for alternative energy research and implication, lowering alternative energy requirements on goods and services, and supplying the much needed funds to enhance our environment, protect our fisheries, and help protect the orcas. But don't worry, Governor, in Washington State. The tankers that are still coming from the west slope of Alaska, down the west coast, through Juan de Fuca Strait, past where the orcas swim, to the Cherry Point refinery, will still be bringing you American oil for your American workers to refine. My name is Peter Cron. I'm running for the nomination for the Federal Conservative Party in the riding of North Vancouver. I need your help. Please sign up to the Conservative Party, come out to the nomination, and vote. And don't take life so hard. Maybe we can enjoy it just a little bit. Thank you. Okay, you guys, how about this? Ladies and gentlemen, this is News Reporter. I'm on Parliament Hill, and licorice has just been declared as a carbon dioxide producing substance. People are protesting at Parliament Hill. What? Prime Minister Trudeau is just coming out. He's making an announcement. He's giving $12 million to Loblaws to collect all the licorice in Canada and put it into freezers, thereby rapidly averting global warming.
That was good.
I like it.
That was good.
Next. Hi, this is security in Parliament. Justin Trudeau is just pulling something out from underneath his desk. It's a bag of licorice. Call security, call security. This is the last one. Anderson Cooper here from CNN. President Donald Trump has just ordered that all pipelines from Canada should be reversed flow and supply licorice to Canada because the fighter jets they bought from Australia have just run out of licorice fuel and the Russians are attacking from the north. Okay, you guys, if this video ever gets out on film, I'm gonna lose the election.
And that's why you should vote for Peter Cron.